Amy, you want
Yes.
General Mattis on that wall. You need him
Oh,
on that
yeah.
wall. And you're gosh darn right he ordered the code red. And you should be happy it was just the code red. For more on the nomination of Marine General
Wait, it's a secret, by the way.
James Mattis, we're not supposed to tell.
But that's not official until Monday.
Only
But Donald
the
Trump kind of leaked it yesterday to
only the
a few
people
thousand.
at his rally in Cincinnati are allowed to know and discuss. But more on the appointment of General Mattis, or the nomination, I should say, of General Mattis to be Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense, as well as some of the other appointments he's made, nominations he's made this week to his cabinet, and the whole interesting choice and the implications of that deal to keep Carrier in Indianapolis. We're pleased to be joined again by Fox News Channel's Bret Baier, hosts of Special Report, Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. Chicago time on the Fox News Channel. Bret, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
So of the nominations he has leveled up this week, do you see anybody that is going to endure anything more than token opposition? I mean, Trump is going to get the cabinet he wants, isn't he?
He is, in part because Democrats changed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to need 60 votes. Now, Democrats are going to have, make a stink in some of the hearings. I think Sessions is probably going to go through the ringer about, past statements that perhaps prevented him from becoming a judge before, and questions about racism. But he's largely dealt with that already, and a lot of supporters have come out, African Americans and others, in support of Jeff Sessions. I don't see a lot of problems. This whole thing about a waiver for General Mattis is really just a hiccup. It's a matter of formality. It's not going to be a big deal at all. And his appointments have been pretty fast, pretty quick comparatively. And, there's a lot of positive reaction on both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill.
Well, one thing that establishment Republicans that I've been reading about are concerned about is Secretary of State position and possibly giving it to General Petraeus.
Yeah, there are a lot of rumblings about that. And that potentially is a confirmation issue. And, when you're campaigning against Hillary Clinton and the handling of classified information, to bring Petraeus in and relitigate his issues with classified information, and then, the fact that he can't leave the state of North Carolina without telling his probation officer.
Right.
That's a unique choice.
Yeah.
And he's on probation for 2 years.
I think it is more likely that Trump gets to Romney,
really?
or punts and does like a Senator Corker.
Yeah. Speaking of what you referenced before, because this is really an important point, and you're hearing some mea culpas from Democrat senators, Chris Coons from Delaware. Oh, gosh, I think it was a mistake now what Harry Reid did with the kind of recasting the rules on filibuster for presidential appointments. Well, I know the Reid rules change didn't apply to Supreme Court justices, but when Trump takes office and nominates a Supreme Court justice, if it's somebody from that list, there's certainly going to be fierce rhetorical opposition. But do you see Republicans, and Mitch McConnell in particular, kind of an old warhorse of the Senate, inclined to exercise the quote-unquote nuclear option to just require 51 votes to confirm a Supreme Court justice rather than, abiding the rules pre-Harry Reid's change a couple years ago?
Yeah, it's called the so-called nuclear option, and I actually don't think McConnell gets there because, you could be in the minority next time. I do think that there is interesting strategy going on. I almost said strategery. And it is that they are seriously considering Joe Manchin, senator from West Virginia, for energy secretary. You take him out of the Senate and you put him as energy secretary. The Republican governor in West Virginia then appoints his replacement. You have one more vote. What's a meeting today at Trump Tower? Heidi Heidekamp, the Democratic senator from North Dakota. She's also up for re-election in 2018. So what I see playing out here is this giant chess game of how they get to 60. And there are 5 Democratic senators up for re-election in 2018 in red states.
How active are Democrats trying to stop Heidi Heitkamp from meeting with Donald Trump?
You know, I don't think they're trying to stop her, but I think there is this angst about that happening in the Democratic caucus. But understand, Amy, they are in the wilderness. They're trying to figure out where the party is going. They've reelected a San Francisco liberal who is 76 years old to head up the Democratic caucus in the House. They have a New York liberal who's heading up the Democratic caucus in the Senate. And there's not a lot of thought about the middle of the country.
And their potential choices, it seems, for Democrat National Committee Chairman, somebody who just was denounced by the ADL yesterday, Keith Ellison, and then the president of NARAL. So, yeah, they're a little bit younger than Schumer and Pelosi, but they're certainly not more Rust Belt than those two.
No, the days of the blue dog Democrat, the moderate Democrat, seem to be long gone. I mean, you can't really find one in Congress. There are a few senators who are a little bit more moderate on the Democratic side, but in the House, it's pretty cut and dry. They've either lost or been primaried out. So there's a real fight. For all the talk before the election of how there was going to be a civil war in the Republican Party after the election, the Civil War is on the Democratic side.
This couple of forums that were of particular note this week. One was Jeff Zucker, the president of CNN, whistling in the strategists for the various campaigns in the 2016 cycle to do a bit of a postmortem. And Zucker was, of course, touting CNN's coverage. But he got a lot of pushback, not surprisingly, from strategists for Ted Cruz, for Marco Rubio, for Jeb Bush, saying that their wall-to-wall coverage of Trump, with one Rubio strategist saying, "You aired an empty podium," kind of exclaiming that, Zucker was kind of soft-pedaling their wall-to-wall coverage of Trump. Do you, speaking of kind of network coverage, cable news network coverage, is there reflection going on, do you think, not just at CNN, but at Fox as well, in terms of looking back at the 2016 cycle, how it was covered? Was it fair? Were there moments we could have done better than we did? Is there that kind of reflection that occurs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the beginning of the cycle, remember, there were 17 candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a challenge to begin with. And one of the candidates got exponential coverage because he was a known entity, and it was almost like, look at this guy. What is this? What's happening here? And when one network would do it, the other network would do it. They'd see the ratings spike, and then it's like cotton candy. You know, you couldn't keep the different shows from not taking it. And I think there is some analysis of that. I think there's also analysis in the Republican Party about maybe not getting 17 candidates to sign on at the beginning, and thereby, creating a shoot the gap for somebody who is, like Donald Trump, who managed to capitalize on all of it. Remember, he didn't get that high of a percentage of a vote in all of these states in the primaries, but it was enough to take him over the top.
Now, one petition that's circulating around is to try to get Donald Trump's Twitter account taken away from him. And I just wanted to, I'm all about free speech. I'm sure you are too. But when his latest tweet about you shouldn't be allowed to burn the American flag, and if you do, there must be consequences, either loss of citizenship or a year in jail. Is there a chance, because of some of these outrageous tweets, that he could get it yanked?
No, I don't think so. I think that we better be prepared for the non-presidential acting president, because he said as much yesterday. I don't think Donald Trump is going to change that much just because he sits behind the Oval Office desk. During the primary, we were always, all the pundits were waiting for that pivot, and it never really happened. I mean, he stayed on the teleprompter there towards the end, but there was not a pivot. I don't think you're going to see a pivot in the in the Oval Office, frankly. And I think if he sees a Democratic senator who's not voting for his, nominee, he's going to tweet about him, and that's going to be a big platform for him. So, I agree with you on the flag burning. That was an aggressive tweet, but I do think that people forget that we have a system of checks and balances and a Supreme Court and a Congress, and he's not going to become a dictator overnight.
Right, and a Supreme Court decision in 1989 that found it to be a legal act and to burn the flag. But yes, things can change. Supreme Court decisions are overturned. But let me ask another question, though, about Trump's consistency. So he's consistently using Twitter. He's consistently having campaign rallies post-election like he did in Cincinnati yesterday. And he's also making good on his promise to pursue mercantilist economic policies. That's what the essential deal with Carrier in Indianapolis is, to kind of force feed state incentives to keep Carrier there and perhaps remind them of the federal government contracts they have. I don't know. But, I mean, it certainly is an interesting precedent to set, and it's drawing the ire of free market supply-side economists like, for example, our mutual friend Jimmy Pethokoukis over at the American Enterprise Institute and others similarly inclined. And I wonder if you're hearing rumblings on Capitol Hill about that now, too, the idea of hitting Ford with a 35% tariff if they locate a small engine assembly plant in Mexico. That wasn't just idle talk in the campaign. Based on what he's done here with Carrier and what he said at Carrier, he means it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a debate ongoing. I mean, it played out on my panel last night between Steve Hayes and Charles Krauthammer.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a debate, but I think that the overall sense, at least at the beginning here, is that it shows, even symbolically, that he's doing something. Now, it's going to be carrots and sticks, according to the Trump people. It's going to be not only, are you going to have a tough time bringing product back into the country if you move out, but you're also going to be incentivized to stay. Maybe specific incentives like we saw Indiana give to Carrier, but also broad incentives in that their plan is to reduce regulations exponentially and to bring down corporate taxes to 15%. I mean, that environment changes the whole situation for companies that they reevaluate, whether they want to be here or someplace else. And then you repatriate $2 trillion from overseas back in for a one-time tax deal. Then you're talking real money.
He is Bret Baier, the anchor of Special Report, weekdays, 5 p.m. Chicago time on Fox News. Bret, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
We'll see you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you